Let's look to our last story of the day. If you recall, in yesterday's episode, we covered this White House press briefing here where reporters were turning on one another, screaming at each other, where Simon, I forgot his last name, Simon Ateba or something like that, was basically yelling at Karine Jean-Pierre saying, look, you haven't taken my questions for like 7 or 9 months. You're clearly discriminating against me. You're not taking anybody else's questions. Well, at least Tucker Carlson here gave the man even more of a platform to sit there and get his grievances out there. I wanted to give him a platform here on the Bald Brad Show as well, because it was kind of tough to hear him shouting in the White House press briefing room. So this does a great justice. Let's hear what the man has to say on Tucker Carlson and Fox News. Hit that like and subscribe button, folks, if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and roll it.
First on that list would be our friend Simon Ateba of Today News Africa. So today Ateba just got frustrated and called out the White House press secretary for ignoring his actual questions for months. Watch what happened next.
What you are doing, you are making a mockery of the First Amendment.
Decorum, please.
It's been 7 months. You've not called on me. You've not my messages. I'm saying that's not right. That's not right.
On times, welcome, guys. Welcome to the press briefing room.
That's not right. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is the United States. This is the White House. It's been 7 months. I sent you
the rest of us are here too, pal.
It's been 7 months. You guys have not done anything for me.
If you have grievances, you should bring them to her later.
I have done that. I've done that.
So the deposit here, and this is why I want to kind of re-show it, because Fox News actually had their camera in the room, which they usually do when Peter Doocy and Jackie Heinrich and others are in there doing their questions. They'll actually do a live feed into whatever show is going on in Fox News. My question was, did he actually do all the necessary precautions behind the scenes before he started taking drastic measures here? And what I said yesterday was, I think he probably did do it, and the guys just had enough. And the example that I used was, look, at some point, you got to turn into an a-hole here because you've been nice. You've been dealing with face-to-face confrontation behind closed doors. You have sent emails. Look, all my emails have been ignored. So he's done everything behind the scenes that he's supposed to do. He checked off the boxes, and she still wanted to mess around. So now he's making a scene out of it. And you know what? You'd be surprised here, you guys. Kayleigh McEnany, who I support, I buy all of her books, I love her and I adore her. She goes, well, she wasn't really a big fan of how he did this. How he basically heckled Karine Jean-Pierre. I'm all for this. I do every single White House press briefing. I'm not even saying I'm a big fan of Simon. That's not what I'm saying, but he has a right to get his questions in at least. She won't even call on the guy. She does that to a lot of people in the room. They all have grievances with Karine Jean-Pierre, and it's kind of disgusting that they actually wouldn't stick up for this guy. Some of them. Now, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know if this guy's a knucklehead here, or he rubs people the wrong way, or if he's a slimy guy. I don't know. Maybe that's also part to do with it. Who the hell knows? But he still has a right to get his questions in. And I'm actually all for him acting like this, because again, at some point, you got to be a jerk. And we've all been in there before, where you act nice, you keep taking advantage of, and then finally you go, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to be a jerk. So the guy had his breaking point. He had his moment. Let him continue here.
Emails have been
And the
ignored.
press corps is tired of dealing with this.
It isn't
I've done
about
that.
you, Simon.
Understand that you get questioned all the time and you don't understand what it is to sit here for 8 months and being discriminated against. Understand that you're in the front row and you feel comfortable and you get questioned all the time. But there are people in the back who don't get any questions.
Don't make assumptions about what the rest of us do. Mind your manners when you're in here. If you have a problem, you bring it up afterwards.
What is just a...
To be fair, it's not really an assumption. And again, this is the qualms that I have with some people in the front row. It's not an assumption. He literally hasn't got his question answered for a long time. Sometimes you forget the guy's even in the room. There was even a point in time where he just stopped showing up. Why even bother coming if you're not going to get your questions answered or even get a question in? And the reason why I phrase it that way is because she doesn't answer anybody's questions. So you got this guy in the front row, this knucklehead. I hope Tucker Carlson calls him out, because the guy frustrated me when he said that. He should have been, if you're not going to stick up for Simon, then just sit there quietly and do your own thing, which a lot of reporters did do in the room. But you got some people turning on him, and they're knuckleheads.
Heard this last 10, 15 minutes is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. So we're either going to continue the briefing, or we can just end the briefing right here.
Outrageous doesn't even describe what we just played for you. So here you have the White House press secretary, whose job it is to answer questions from journalists on behalf of the entire American population, hijacking the event to promote a TV show, and then screaming at a guy who wants his questions answered. And then the other shills in the room don't take the side of their fellow journalist, but take the side of the lady at the front, to whom they are actually beholden, and try and shut down Simon Ateba. Who did that?
It's again, I haven't watched this whole thing. It seems like Tucker Carlson here is saying the same thing I did yesterday. And it's just as surprised as I was going, I thought everybody would band around this guy because they all have their grievances with this lady of not answering their questions, not taking everybody's questions. They're all reporters. You think they would band together and be in unison, which we've seen from NBC, Fox, and ABC working together. It seemed like maybe they had that strategically behind closed doors. I don't know what goes on, but he's just as shocked as I was.
This is a partial list. That would include Jeff Mason of Reuters, who should be ashamed, Brian Karam of CNN,
Yep.
Associated Press correspondent Zeke Miller. He even apologized to the press secretary later in the press conference. They, again, should be ashamed of themselves. And previous generations of reporters would have turned on them. Really, you're taking her side?
Well, see, Tucker, all three of those, CNN, the Associated Press, and others, they get, I mean, literally, she starts with Zeke Miller of the Associated Press or somebody of the Associated Press, regardless who's sitting down for them. They take the first question. They get the first question every time. So, of course, they're going to turn around and start going off after Simon and whoever else. But it's true. The people in the back don't get their questions in. It's true. We all see what's going on. I cover every single one for the most part. It does happen. I don't show all the clips, folks, but she really does. She really does sit there and I don't know if it's discrimination or what you would want to call it, but she definitely is strategic in terms of who she takes questions from.
A liar? Your job is not to suck up to power. It's to serve your viewers and readers by getting to the truth. But instead, they piled on Simon Ateba. Really the most revealing moment maybe ever in the White House press room. We are honored now to be joined by Simon Ateba himself.
Let's see what he has to
Simon,
say.
thank you so much for coming on. We're really glad to have you. What prompted, you seem very frustrated there. What prompted your exchange with the press secretary?
Yes, thank you, Tucker. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm grateful. You know, the First Amendment protects the freedom of speech, the press, and assembly, and the right to petition your government to seek redress. And
Yes.
that First Amendment says that I have the right to ask questions, to do my job, and the press secretary doesn't need to like me, date me, marry me, have 2 black children with me. She doesn't need all that. She doesn't even need to like my accent, doesn't need to like what I look like, where I come from. They look down on me. They don't respect the First Amendment. And so what has been happening in the White House is in the past 7 months, I've done all the right things. I've not been called on. I've gone to her office to seek a meeting. She said that she will meet with me next year. I've sent questions about the Nigerian election, about, the problems, challenges in Africa. And they've not called on me, even as the vice president is going to Africa, even as the first lady, Jill Biden, went to Africa, even when they received 50 African leaders for the U.S.-African Summit in Washington, D.C., the guy who covers the White House, the African guy who covers the White House is looked down upon in the greatest country in the world, in the most advanced country where freedom of speech is protected. It's a shame what happened today. One of the guys that you...
It is a shame what happened, but I'm not really for the whole idea of like, she's looking down on you. Maybe he has more evidence than we do, but I have a feeling he's starting to head into the realm of a little bit more than maybe she just doesn't like you, or maybe she thinks you're a knucklehead. I don't know. I'm not in that room, but it seems like he's going down some weird territory here that seems a little bit weird.
Show there now, Brian, he was kicked out of the WACA because he became violent in the Rose Garden. It's a disgrace. It's very violent. He attacks many people. It's a shame. What happened to me today, it's a total disgrace, and it's happening in the Biden White House. And when it happens to Jim Acosta of CNN, because they respect him, he's white, he works for CNN, I'm black, I'm African, I don't have money. They look down on me. I don't have...
Look, man, you're going down some race thing that I just don't agree with. You going, well, I don't have money, I'm black. Look, she's black too, dude. So, look, the whole race thing now you're pushing and peddling, I'm not on board with that. Simon, I do agree. I think you should have your questions in. I think you should be called on. But what you're doing here by going, well, because I'm black and I don't have money, and which everybody can see that you're black, but nobody knew that you didn't have money until you just mentioned it. I don't think that's a reason as to why she's not taking your questions, man.
The opportunities that they have, and they don't treat me the same way. I need to do my job. The freedom of speech and the press in the U.S. allows me to do my job, and that's the only thing that I'm trying to do. And they are stonewalling me, trying to help Karine Jean-Pierre, and it's a shame.
The fact that Jeff Mason and the rest, who should be ashamed of himself, took the White House side against you is really one of the most awful things I've ever seen. I was shocked by it, as cynical as I am, and I appreciate your coming on tonight. You seem unbowed. Simon Ateba, we are...
I agree with Tucker. Again, I was shocked. I literally was. That's why it was our lead story yesterday. I thought they would band together and be like, yeah, why don't you take the guy's question or defer one of your questions to him? You know what I mean? Like, hey, Karine, I would love for Simon to go ahead and take my spot today. Work something out behind the scenes of like, hey, you know what? We're all reporters. We're all here to get the word out. Why don't you just give one of your questions to him just for one day? Now, maybe that's too much. I'm not one of those people in the room. I'm not for him pushing this whole race thing. I'm black. I don't have money. Look, I'm not big into that type of idea. Maybe you did something. Maybe you said something that she didn't like. You really pissed her off. You probably pissed her off more because this wasn't the only time he's kind of spoken up. But something needs to be done with that White House, and not just the White House, but also the reporters in that room working together here and going, look, you know what? This is BS, man. You need to conduct it a different way here where you're taking everybody's questions. And he makes a great point. When you got the first lady and the vice president going to Africa and you don't even call the guy that handles all of that, the White House correspondence for basically African situations and events, you're not going to call him that guy. Find it a little bit odd. I don't think it has anything to do with race, maybe discrimination, but hell, I don't know, folks. But let me know what you think about this. We had Simon be able to speak up, get his viewpoint out there. We may or may not agree with it, but I want to know what you agree with about what he said. Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.